All right, thank you, Steve. And thank you all for being here today. Again, we all do really appreciate your interest in Crew-12. Yesterday we had our ISS program internal readiness review, and we're not tracking any major issues, so we're looking forward to getting the Crew-12 guys on board. You know, Steve mentioned the launch at 6 a.m. On the 11th. If it happens then, again, will be a docking to our Zenith port on Node 2 at around 2 p.m. or so Eastern time on the following day, the 12th. So the crew, we're excited to welcome back 2 veterans. We've got Jessica Meir. This will be her second space flight. She was on Expedition 61, 62. And also we have Andrey Fedyaev, and he also flew on 68, 69. This is his second space flight. And our 2 new flyers, we're excited to have Jack Hathaway, the NASA astronaut, as well as Sophie Adenot and an ESA astronaut. So we, of course, we'll welcome them. They're really, all 4 of them are outstanding individuals. They're going to be a great asset to us on board. So on board currently, we have 3 crew with the early departure of Crew-11. And so that's Chris and Sergey. Chris is the only U.S. operating segment crew member right now. You know, this is not our first time at all that we've had one single U.S. crew member on board, and the last time was 2020. But we've had this several times. So what it means is really there's just fewer hands on board to do some of the work. So we are continuing to do research, and we're doing maintenance, and we're doing stowage. We have 2 cargo vehicles on board. And so there's a lot of work to be done. And so, you know, that's one of the reasons we like to have more than 3 crew on board, is just to get more work done. That, and then on the U.S. operating segment, if we were to have a major failure, then we would like to have a second USOS crew member to be able to go out and perform a complex spacewalk. It just has to do with the amount of specialty training that they've had. And so right now, no issues on board ISS, like I said. And, you know, when the Crew-12 guys get there, bring us up to our full complement to be able to react to those types of contingencies faster. But we're not tracking anything urgent at the time. So everything is really actually going very well with, you know, I did talk to Chris on Wednesday, and he's in great spirits, and as well as the Crew-12 guys coming up. So everybody is looking forward to joining up on ISS very soon. So sometimes, as you know, we would have 2 Dragon crews that would hand over the intricate details on board ISS. You know, they'd both be there at the same time, so we'd have up to 11 crew on board. In this case, we'll not be having that direct handover, is what we call it. But we have Chris on board, and he knows all those intricacies. So between that and some videos that the crews have recorded in advance, we don't see any issues. We're not tracking any problems whatsoever with not having that direct handover. So we don't see any problem with this indirect handover. From a science perspective, this crew is going to be given a lot of science, the Crew-12 guys, along with Chris. And so I'll just highlight some of our experiments that they'll have while they're on board. One of them is an IV fluid experiment. And so, you know, medically, an IV bag, you know, you've seen them all. They're, of course, a medical grade type of fluid. And so when we go on a Mars mission, an IV fluid bag like that will expire before the entire mission has transpired. And furthermore, if you were to launch a bunch of IV bags in case of some medical contingency, then that takes up mass and volume. So what we're going to do on board during the Crew-12 timeframe is see if we can use potable water from the ISS system and put it through a filtration system that will take out the bacteria and the other contaminants and give us medical grade IV fluid. So we'll bring a bag of IV fluid home, test it out, and see if it meets the mark. So you can imagine that in both for space applications and on the ground that this could be an incredibly useful experiment. So another couple of examples, we have a plant experiment looking at microbe interaction with the plants, and that will help us grow plants in future missions, as well as looking at astronauts' body and microgravity, specifically their blood flow. So we have different types of instrumentation and trying to understand geometries and how that could impact crew members' health long-term in microgravity. So lots of good experiments to be had. And then just our near-term flight plan. I wanted to mention that SpaceX 33 is on board right now, and so Chris is, like I said, is doing some research and some stowage associated with that mission. That mission also in the external trunk, it has a boost kit, and SpaceX and our team have done a great job developing that kit, and we've been using it over the past several weeks, and we've used up all of the propellant, all the usable propellant in the trunk, and we've boosted ISS to the highest it's ever been. So last week we boosted ISS to 262 miles. And that's 422 kilometers, so that's the highest we've ever had ISS historically. And so I just want to thank the team and the SpaceX guys for the outstanding delivery and this contribution for ISS. So that mission is going to complete on or about February 26th, so we're looking to undock it at that time. That'll be after the Crew-12 guys get on board and we can get everything wrapped up associated with the stowage there and the science. And we also have got the HTVX vehicle, X1 vehicle on board. Super happy to have that. It's the maiden voyage of that particular spacecraft. And we are looking right now for an unberth date around the first week of March. And we have a small navigation sensor demonstration as well associated with that. So we'll unberth it in March, and then sometime in early March, we'll take the robotic arm and maneuver the HTV so that its sensors have a line of sight to the front docking port, allow it to just do a quick test, and then we'll release it the following day. And additionally, so in March, currently planning for March 22nd, we have the next Progress launch. So a couple of days prior to that launch, we'll undock the existing Progress that's on board that same port on the Zenith side. And of course, as you're aware, the Russian launch pad for Soyuz and Progress out at Baikonur, it's under repairs right now. So we'll be watching that schedule, and any questions you have about that, of course, I'll have to direct you to Roscosmos on that. But it's looking pretty good in that time frame for that vehicle to arrive. So we're looking forward to that. Our partnership is very strong, and so when they have a small delay in their cargo vehicle, of course, we've been assisting with some amount of cargo, but it has not been a big tax or any big problem on our side at all whatsoever. And then lastly, I'll just mention the 2 EVAs that we were going to have in January, but were deferred due to the Crew-11 departure. They're not urgent, and we're looking for a home. We'll let you guys know where those will fall, but we're looking at the spring, summer time frame, and we have not yet determined which dates. So I lastly just want to thank all the ISS program people, but also our military and our other government agencies, the commercial crew program, the flight operations guys, the engineering team, and the list goes on, but everyone that has assisted with bringing Crew-11 home and trying to prepare for this Crew-12 mission. We're looking really good. Excited to get the Crew-12 guys here. And that's all I have, so I'm going to hand it over to Andy.
Well, thank you, Dina. It's a pleasure to be part of the briefing today, even if it's only remotely from the European Astronaut Center. And I hope you can hear me all right. NASA is and has always been one of the closest partners of the European Space Agency. And a couple months ago, we celebrated together 25 years of continuous human presence on board the International Space Station. It's an impressive milestone and a testimony of the successful collaboration which has been tying our space agencies together. Now we have ESA astronaut Sophie Adenot as part of Crew-12, about to embark on her first journey to space. She will be the 22nd ESA astronaut working on the ISS and conducting research and advancing science, notably thanks to our European Columbus module, which is our European laboratory, and which recently completed its 100,000th orbit around the Earth. I think that was last September, if we calculated correctly. Sophie was selected in 2022. It was the first time that ESA selected a new class of astronauts since 2008. It was a European-wide astronaut selection, and it attracted more than 22,500 candidates. And out of those, we selected 5 talented individuals to join our astronaut corps. And Sophie will be the first from this new class to embark on a long-duration mission. Together with 4 other members of her class and a colleague from the Australian Space Agency, she went through basic training at the European Astronaut Center and was assigned to a mission less than 1 month later. Teams have since then worked tirelessly to ensure the preparation of this mission and support to Sophie on her upcoming adventure. And I'd like to thank all of those teams for preparing Sophie so well. Astronauts' missions, operations, and training are at the heart of any exploration program, and they rely on a multitude of passionate people devoting their time and energy to ensure the success of our missions. Sophie is one of those talented individuals and has been performing incredibly well, and we're all very sure that she will have a tremendously successful mission on the ISS together with her crewmates. You might also have noticed that in addition to the Crew-12 and Expedition 74 patches, Sophie will also be carrying an ESA patch on her mission. This is a tradition among ESA astronauts to name and have an ESA mission patch. And Sophie has chosen a name for her mission, which she thinks reflects the mission. The name is Epsilon, meaning or symbolizing the power of the small yet impactful contributions, and also symbolizing how multiple parts unite to create a whole. And I think this is a very nice message that underlies how an astronaut is a part of a much larger and wider group, or in other words, a small piece of a larger and more complex puzzle. From the support teams to the engineers working on the launcher and the technologies, from the scientific community supporting the development and implementation of advanced experiments, and to the countless institutions involved in one way or the other, it takes thousands of people to support this collective endeavor. We all know it. Space exploration activities are developing worldwide at a pace unparalleled, with ambitious initiatives put in place by a high number of countries and private actors. In such a context, a coherent and well-coordinated strategy is essential, and Europe is proud to have developed a substantial human spaceflight program as well. With a bold vision of establishing continuous, sustainable, and responsible human and robotic exploration of the solar system by providing unique contributions and returning benefits to society, lies at the core of this overarching strategy. And our high-level destination goals are to maintain a human presence in and utilization of low Earth orbit, to allow Europeans to explore the moon in the 2030s, and to prepare to take Europeans to explore Mars at the end of the 2040s. With that, we're also ensuring our long-term participation in key programs such as the International Space Station and Artemis, as well as ensuring our common ability to act towards any future projects involving human spaceflight. And thus, everyone at ESA is very proud and excited to support not just Sophie, but all of Crew-12 and Expedition 74. And we look forward to an exciting future within human spaceflight, not only in low Earth orbit, but also in the coming years to the moon. And with that, I'd like to pass it over to Lee.
Hi, thank you, Andy. Hello, everyone. Excited to be here and get to talk to you about our preparations for the launch of Dragon and the Crew-12 mission in 2 weeks. It's been a busy month with Crew-11 Dragon departure and safe return a couple weeks ago. Crew-11 safely splashed down off the coast of San Diego, California, which was our fifth Dragon return since moving back to the West Coast last year. And then last week, the Sirius-33 Dragon, currently docked to the ISS, completed our final boost burn, helping maintain ISS orbital altitude over the last 5 months. In parallel, our teams have been working towards Crew-12 launch, which will be our 12th long-duration human spaceflight mission to the ISS, supporting NASA's Commercial Crew program. We're excited to fly Jessica, Jack, Sophie, and Andrey, along with Critical Science, to the ISS, and particularly excited about our return, our frequent flyer, Andrey, for his second Dragon mission, and to be a part of Jack and Sophie's first spaceflight as well. Our teams are currently finishing up closeout of the Dragon spacecraft, with expectation to transport to the hangar at Pad 40 early next week. And the Falcon 9 booster that's supporting this mission will be on its second flight after completing a successful launch of a Starlink mission earlier this month. And then Crew-12 will be launching off of Space Launch Complex 40. This will be our second human spaceflight launch off of that pad. And first for this mission, the Falcon booster will perform a return to launch site to our new landing zone at Slick 40. As Steve mentioned, we're working towards a no later than February 11th, 6 a.m. as our first launch opportunity, and all of our hardware and pad systems are on track to support. As always, NASA and SpaceX work closely together in partnership to make sure our teams and hardware are ready to fly. This mission includes a few notable upgrades, including a new Falcon 9 Stage 2 flight controller, an upgraded Dragon parachute bay and closeout structure, and the full crew will don upgraded flight suits, similar to the version that Crew-11 pilot Mike Fink wore for his mission. We still have multiple reviews and final checkouts prior to launch. This gives us an opportunity to step back, double and triple check all of our data, and make sure that we're safe to fly. Crew safety is always our joint highest priority. We're very proud of our partnership with ISS and the international community that helps sustain, operate, and execute incredible science on the ISS. And I want to say a special thank you to our friends at NASA, ESA, Roscosmos, and the 45th for your continued trust as we proceed towards another crew mission together. And go Crew-12.
Mm-hmm. Great. Thank you to our briefers for those opening remarks. We will now open it up for questions here in the room as well as on the phone bridge. If you are on the phone bridge, you can press *1 to submit your question. And if your question has already been asked and answered, please press *2 to withdraw it. We do have quite a bit of media interest today, so please try to limit your question to one each. Once your name is called, please state your name, affiliation, and to whom you'd like to direct your question. It looks like we do have a question here. Go ahead, Eric.
Eric Burr, Ars Technica. Thanks for doing this. I guess my question concerns the turnaround time between Artemis 2 and Crew-12. Like, what's the minimum amount of time you need to transition from one launch to the other? And specifically, I understand that, you know, one of the issues is repositioning Navy recovery forces in case of an ascent abort. So maybe just talk about sort of that scenario and explain to us kind of the timing.
Yeah, I can start and see if Ken or Dina have anything to add. So, you know, the timing in between missions sort of depends a little bit as to what happens. For example, if Artemis were to launch, have a great wet dress, proceed into their FRR and launch on the 8th, we think we could be ready to go launch Crew-11 around the 13th. So, and the things that we have to...
If they launch the 19th.
Oh, I'm saying if they launch successfully, yeah. If they launch or in an orbit, then we would defer all the way to the 19th, right? We would then stand down, let them have their operations. If they get into a countdown and they attempt on the 8th and then have an issue where they stand down, then we could go a few days later as early as the 13th. And so the things that we're looking to deconflict are operations relative to the suit-up room. Right now, we tend to use the dual suit-up room in the ONC where the crew stays. And then we have an option to go use the SpaceX suit-up room if we need to at Pad 39A. SpaceX has been gracious enough to let us use that, which they've used for many of their flights. The rescue assets are common between the two missions, so that's something that Detachment 3 and the Department of Defense Forces, right, the Air Force, we use common forces for that. Recovery is separate, right? We have a Navy ship that Artemis uses for recovery. We use the SpaceX recovery. It's a common landing site off San Diego, and then the northern sites for Artemis are kind of overlap our northern sites. So that's why we would deconflict operations in flight. And then, you know, we have different scenarios. If they get into a wet dress and they need another wet dress, but then didn't proceed in this window, we could go on as early as the 11th or 12th. So we have all these different scenarios, just depending on what happens. Hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you. And we do have another question here in the room. Go ahead. Okay, Mark, go ahead.
Thank you, Mark Corot, the Aviation Week and Space Technology. And I apologize if you said this during your opening remarks, but how long is the Crew-12 mission planned for, and how flexible would it be in terms of maybe extending it with the crew you're launching?
Yeah, we have the capability. We did extend the certification of Dragon. You know, we've been flying 6-month missions, and we have extended the certification of Dragon to be able to stay docked to ISS up to 8 months. And so we have that capability. We'd have to go look at whether we're going to use it or not, but it's there and ready to stay up to eight months. Eventually, we're working on extending that certification longer and longer. As we get toward the end of ISS and move toward the deorbit of ISS, we may need to stay a little longer. And so we keep extending that certification.
And so in this case, we are planning on an 8-month mission. And so, but, if, you know, we're continually looking at what our overall flight plan looks like.
Thank you both. We'll next take a question from Marcia Dunn with the Associated Press.
Oh, hi, Marcia Dunn at the AP. Are the communication assets also a driver for wanting the two separate, the two Artemis II Crew-12 separate for launch time communication assets? And for Dina, were there any extra medical tests or checks ordered for Crew-12 given the circumstances surrounding Crew-11's early departure? Any changes whatsoever stemming from the sick crew? And is the IV fluid experiment related to that, or was that already planned? Thanks.
Yeah, I'll take the first question relative to the communication assets. Yes, Artemis does utilize the TDRS communication assets for not only on pad operations, but also with Orion, but also early part of their mission, they fly a high Earth orbit, and so they use TDRS for that, and so that would have to be deconflicted. Also, if we were in free flight, and which we're not intending to do, if we had simultaneous operations between Dragon in flight and Artemis, we would have to deconflict even the Deep Space Network comm to make sure the two beams, the TDRS beam and the Deep Space Network beam, didn't overlap. So that was one of the considerations as well. And I'll let Dina take the next question.
Okay. And then on the Crew-12 pre-flight medical testing question, I'm not aware of any tests that were changed or new. I mean, of course, like any normal human being in person, you'll have your doctor consultations and such, but I'm not aware of any specific tests. And then on the IV fluid experiment, it's not related. This is the experiment that was planned before the Crew-11 return. This is just happened to be a fun experiment that I just wanted to point out, but it is not at all related.
Thank you. Next up, we'll go to Will Robinson-Smith with Spaceflight Now.
Hi, thanks for taking the time to answer our questions today. Wonder if you could expand a little bit more. This is going towards Mr. Echerd from SpaceX. A little bit more on the upgraded flight suits that the crew will be flying. What did you learn from the test out with Mike Fink on that initial flight with Crew-11? Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for your question. Yeah, I think we're constantly learning and trying to improve our hardware to make it as reliable and safe as possible. We did have a few lessons learned from the version that Mike Fink flew for his Crew-11 mission and applied those with the build and production of the Crew-12 flight suits. But but predominantly it's very similar design as what Mike flew.
Thank you. Our next question on the phone bridge comes from Ryan Caton with NASASpaceRights.com.
Hi, thanks for doing this. I'm just wondering, following the deployment of the EVAs from Crew-11, has there been any extra or kind of specialized training or procedures being provided to Crew-12 to prepare for those? I know you said they were going to be taking place as early as the springtime, so I'm just curious about that. Thank you.
So, the crews do training in our neutral buoyancy laboratory, and of course, knowing that this is happening, ideally you would get as much training as you could on all of those types of tasks. In this case, there was not a lot of time, but they are familiar with those types of tasks, and they are trained fully to do those tasks when they come up. So there was not like a extreme urgency to get them a whole lot of training prior to their flight in order to do those.
Thank you. As a reminder, you can press *1 to submit your question, and we also will try to get to some questions on social media too. So if you want to use the hashtag AskNASA, you can submit your question on social media as well. Next up, we'll go to Josh Dinner with Space.com.
Hi, thanks for doing this. Josh Dinner with Space.com. In lieu of the crew handover period aboard the space station, were there any activities or operations that needed to be mitigated or altered due to the lack of crew?
So, frankly, when you have 11 crew members on board, it's a lot of crew members. And so you just have a lot less planning to do, a lot fewer number of scheduled events, I'd say. But, Chris and his new Crew-12 crew members will have a lot of time to do that handover. There's actually not a rush like you might have when you have a certain, like, say, 2 or 3 day handover of crew to crew and trying to get all that information across. So there was really not, the main mitigation is, it's a kind of a lot to take in. You're in a new home, and just like if you, for example, you go to some new BRBO or whatever your bed and breakfast is, and you got to push the faucet handle harder in order to make it stop, or this particular area is drafty, and there's a couple of just fine details, and those types of words are passed from crew to crew. And so Chris will do what he can, and also these videos that the crew has recently made have kind of detailed out a lot of really cool intricacies, and so those videos have been passed to the Crew-12 guys, and so they've had a chance to study those in advance. So really there's not like a mitigation needed so much as just we've done everything we can to supplement and bring them up to speed as quickly as possible, and I'm sure they'll hit the ground running.
Thanks, Dina. Next up, we'll go to Jeff Faust with Space News.
Good morning. In addition to having a longer increment potentially for Crew-12, I know there were some discussions last year about reducing the USOS crew size from 4 to 3. Now that you have a better understanding of the budget and station logistics, is that still on the table for missions beyond Crew-12?
Maybe I could take it first, and if Ken, you want to add anything, but I'll just say at this time we're continuing to plan for 4 crew. But we're continually looking at our stockpile of supplies and what it takes to continue to do that. Right now, we are planning for 4. Ken, did you want to add anything?
I would just say that what we do is we look at options that we might have to activate if we have reduced resources. But based on the most recent appropriation and the supplemental appropriation that we received before that, we think we're going to be able to maintain 4 crew on ISS. And we're always evaluating mission length and the activities that we do aboard ISS to make sure that we match with the resources we have available.
Our next question comes from Marcia Smith with Space Policy Online.
Thanks so much. My question, I think, is to Ken. So I'm curious about how many more U.S. flights you're expecting to ISS, because you're extending the length of each mission, and it's already 2026, and 2030 is just around the corner. So how many more flights to ISS do you anticipate? And those will be, I gather, on Crew Dragons. But how is Starliner looking? Are you going to fit in Starliner at some point?
So I mean, I haven't done the math on the number of flights, but if I do it roughly here, I think it's about eight to 10 more flights that we'd be looking at if you slip in private astronaut missions and potential other individual short missions. The numbers could go up or down. Starliner, we're planning to fly on another uncrewed mission this spring. Sometime in the spring to summer. We'll launch it when it's ready. We'll gather all the information we need to complete the certification, and then we want to work Starliner back into the rotation so it could have, right now, we think as many as 3 more missions with Crew.
Thank you. We do have a follow-up from Will Robinson-Smith with Spaceflight Now.
Yes, hi. Thanks for taking another round of questions from us here. Just a quick follow-up, because my Starliner question was asked and answered, and I appreciate Marcia for that. A quick one to Mr. Echerd. With the use of landing zone 40, first of all, is that the name of it, LZ40? And is there anything else that needs to be buttoned up at that landing site for this first landing back at 40? Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for the question. It's obviously an exciting time at Spaceport, Florida, and we're excited to debut our new landing zone 40. That's the right name. This will be our primary landing site for our Falcon 9 boosters that perform return to launch site going forward. And we've completed all of the range and Space Force certification to be ready for this mission. We still have access to landing zone 2 if we ever need it, but the expectation is that would be primarily for Falcon Heavy launches where we have 2 return to launch site side boosters.
Thank you. And I believe we do have another question here in the room.
Thank you very much. Good morning. My name is Moises Avila. I work for Agence France Presse, AFP. Considering the medical concern you had to deal with the Q11, is there anything you can do to avoid that issue in the Crew-12, or does it just depend on the physical condition of each astronaut, or maybe it was just something unexpected?
I'll just say, so we're not talking about the medical situation on Crew-11. Nothing has changed in our way of doing business. I'll leave it at that, maybe.
And we do have another question on our phone bridge from Marcia Dunn with the Associated Press.
Oh, hi. Yes, Steve, could you run through the dates again versus when you could launch, depending on the scenarios? You said maybe 13th, and then you switched to the 19th. I'm not sure what, I followed what the difference there is in when you could launch either. And is there any way, if Artemis 2 is totally out of the picture, can you move it up before the 11th, or is that the absolute soonest you can go?
Yeah, good question, Marcia. So right now, the 11th is the soonest we could launch. When we laid out all the hardware processing for Dragon, Falcon 9, crew training, and that whole activity of preparing with the certification, the 11th is the earliest that we could launch. So we have no intention of planning to accelerate off the 11th. There's a couple different scenarios with Artemis. The one would be they go to wet dress and they have a successful wet dress and they launch, and they've said right now no earlier than the 8th. If that happens, they would be in free flight and land roughly 10 days later. Then we would move our launch after Artemis to no earlier than the 19th. If Artemis got into a countdown and had some kind of challenge in the countdown and then needed more time, we could go earlier than the 19th. A little later than the 11th, but more like probably the 13th, 14th. So we have, depending on what launch date they launch on, we know as what our earliest launch date would be, and then we also know if they get into a countdown and were to have an issue, how early we can go. And we've laid out all the timelines relative to crew quarantine, when SpaceX will move their hardware to 40, when we get into a static fire dry dress. I would say those timelines will be a little dynamic because, in particular, if we get out to the launch pad and we're trying to static fire around Artemis operations, we will work around Artemis in all those scenarios. So it depends, and we have a table that we have built. That's what I'm reading from that lay out all those different options. Hopefully that was more clear, Marcia.
Thanks, Steve. We do have another question from someone here in the room.
Richard T. with the Post newspaper. A question for either Steve or Dina. Can you describe what the EVAs that Crew-11 was going to do have now been pushed forward for Crew-12? And have they been modified in any way with a little bit of extra time, or are they the same in scope? Thank you.